My name, for you who doesn't know it, is Jimmy, and I'm the CTO and co-founder of Octo. And I've been working in this field for far too long, but I still love it. So it's pretty cool to be able to do this. I will work with lots of different retailers and brands, H&M, Converse, Intersport, Shell Company, Cartier. Some of them we will touch base with during this webinar, but that's kind of more my background. So you know a little bit about me, so we know each other going forward. So to dig into this, we're going to look at what does Octo do. So what we've labeled our service to is an experience data platform. So we can enable data to flow more easily to front-end experiences or into front-end experiences, and not move data around too much, move data into different databases, integrating data models, but more easily take transactional, any kind of data, customer data, product data, any type of content, onboard and unify that into the Octo Experience Data Platform, and then expose this in any different shape, form, or way a front end wants to consume it. So this is kind of what Octo does and enables and do this at a lightning speed. And we're also going to touch with some of these concepts that we have around, because a couple of pre-posted questions that I got was around all these acronyms that are flying around now that you guys have to kind of have a relationship to or understand what they mean. So a lot of serverless, a lot of headless, a lot of microservices. What is it and how does that come to play for me when I'm kind of picking a platform or building digital solutions or enabling digital teams to be more efficient moving forward? So some of these I will kind of try to answer during the different slides as we move along here. And please post questions as I see you do, but I'll have the customer service team look at them, and myself after the webinar, we get back to you personally on all these different types of questions that you might have. But post them, please do that. A couple of things that we believe in when we started this, this journey with Octo is that we feel that digital teams need to be more autonomous when it comes to data. They need to be more enabled to do more with the data, to have access to enterprise data in a different way and not rely on being locked in or have a position in a roadmap from the IT team where they always are swamped with work. They have too much to do, so you have no place where you can do it. We also believe that there's a need for unlocking a lot of this creativity. Innovation will happen where it before was impossible or where it before wasn't possible. So there needs to be more creativity in how you build front end, how you kind of approach customers. What is a digital experience? What do you want to approach your customers with, or what do we as customer want to be kind of, what journey do we want to be in digitally, but also tying together the physical experience with the digital experience and have this more meeting around an interest or these tribals or tribes that go up and you can have a joint interest, both physical one to a physical location or an activity and a digital experience built into that. And also making everything more relevant within that specific session depends on who you are at that, because I'm CTO of Octo, but I'm also dad. I'm a dog owner. There's a lot of personas attached to me. How can we work with that with each different digital touch point that I'm in or meet a customer in? So these are some things that we kind of believe strongly in, and we see that the customers in the Octo family also believe in this, and the partners joining now as well are believing in this. There's something else out there. There's something new. There's a new way of doing this. Just to give you some background or ground zero of who we work with, a couple of brands here. Cartier, we will talk about that later on, one of the Octo champions that's done a great story, it is a great story. Phoenix Outdoor, Fjällräven, Primus, very known brands, both brands, branded manufacturers, but also retail brands within that organization. Akana Will, cool training, though, cool startup as well. Nordic Nest, big Scandinavian home living, do they sell? We have Intersport, Global, Shell Company, Electronics, so all these kind of brands that we work with. Stiga Sport, cool now with the Pingis success for the Swedish teams now. Pretty cool to be part of that, although small. We didn't contribute with much in that success, gold and silver. But if you, so these are part of the Octo family and customers that we work with that believe in the same thing that we do. But if you also look at the current CX landscape, the customer experience landscape, how does it look? How does it feel when you enter it? So this is a slide that has been around kind of for a long time, and you call it omnichannel or you call it whatever. It's sort of like a joint experience, but now it's more true than ever, given kind of the state that the digital maturity is in, the networks, the acronyms that we started with, the headless, the serverless, the microservices, the edge computing, the edge data that you can kind of have access to. But when you look at the journey here from a customer's point of view, there's all these different states you're in, but it's you have like an out of store where you kind of do most of the searching, or you're looking or validating. There's an in-store experiences now with kind of the stores. When COVID goes away, perhaps comes back, you have a lot of these kind of, it's good to be in a store. It's good to talk to a knowledgeable salesperson, to discuss it and meet others and get inspiration and try out things and kind of hold it in your hands. But there's also an online journey where you do a lot of exploration. And all of these are kind of one journey for you as a customer. So there's not kind of a, like several different ones. It's one journey as a customer, and you want to tie that together and make it as unique as you can and as relevant you can for any customers in order to do that. So this is kind of servicing all your customers everywhere, in every instance, all times, globally. So if you look at what we've done is kind of releasing these silos, because what you find here is there are all these enterprise data points that you have within an organization. You have your CRM, where you have most of the times your customer data. It can be a loyalty system or whatnot, where you store data around the customers. Your ERP, which is more being decoupled now as well into different types of services, but you could generally say that an ERP holds your transactional data or your financial data, but also like in an enterprise state. The PIM data, your products being in there, kind of being enriched. You can have more or less complicated models describing your products in different types of layers, bundles, looks, and whatnot within the PIM system. And if you need it or not, you can have a DAM with campaign content or CMS and whatnot. But this is kind of what you often find, that these are locked down into silos, and it's not very easy to get the data out of these systems to consume it, because these systems are built with the purpose of maintaining data, the integrity of the data. It's not built to communicate data to someone else. And if you don't want to move data between these different databases either, because it creates friction within the system landscape. So what you end up with, you kind of end up with this, start integrating, moving data around, making sure that all of these different systems have the same state, which creates these super big mastodon databases, just shifting data around, and everybody should have the same state. And kind of the ones that feed or give access to data to the front ends are the biggest one, expecting everything to be integrated into these systems. And what you do when you move data around at this pace and at this level, you kind of dilute the data, because perhaps you have this super strong model that you built in your PIM system. And when you push that to the e-com, the back end of the e-com area, they say, well, we got a product catalog. It can only handle 30% of what you built in your PIM system. So you kind of have to, like, the model that you built here that you love and that you know kind of really does the trick, you have to kind of only push 30% of that into the e-com, and that becomes the experience in the front end. So kind of if we move into something of the acronyms that we started with here, headless is part of this. It's don't push it in there if it's not needed. If you can be headless, expose the data to the front end screen. Don't overload or use one of these systems as a proxy from a back end to front end in order to get the data into the front ends. So that's kind of typically diluting data. And the same with the transactions or the CRM, the data points. Like, where should it be? It needs to be somewhere. So the data needs to be somewhere to be accessible from the front end. And somebody needs to perhaps unify it if it needs to be in one state. But what you do, you lose context and you dilute the data, which is nothing that you want to be in. And you waste a lot of money just moving data around. And the state the data gets into is never good enough, because when you have the vision in the front end, you always have to reduce it based on the data accessible for this front end. So that's something I think all of you have kind of experienced and looked at. And to just like knock the door in is like it's time consuming, expensive, creates team friction. So if you've done it one time and the experience from doing that, it's not likely that you do it again. And you know that you have to rely so much on the IT team, and you know that they always prioritize not your stuff. So that's an experience that you have. And what kind of the ultimate result of that is that companies, they go like rigid. So innovation dies. They stop creating kind of these new ways of experience, new ways of exposing products, new ways of meeting customers and create innovation within. And also like the people, the employees need to feel innovative as well, or enabled to innovate. So that also something when innovation goes away. So it's not a good thing. So that's just on top of what you just discussed. So what you want to do is kind of turn that enterprise data into experience data. You have to like ask yourself, what state is my data in? Is it in an experience state where it's easily consumable? Or is it in an enterprise state where it's kind of more rigid, static, more of a like slow turning type of data, like slow IT or fast IT? So this is something that you have to look into. And kind of this is what we've looked into with Octo. How can we kind of do this in a different way? How can we approach building unified experiences based on experience data in a different way? What if we had data in an experience state? What could we do then? So this is something that we've done. And 3 principal kind of entities or areas that we usually look at when we kind of work with our customers in the Octo family is customer, very important thing when you want to communicate. So what kind of data points, what kind of things do we need from a customer standpoint, the 360 view of the customers, like the age, addresses, the purchases, the genders, the size they usually buy, things that kind of tie into customers, giving if it's a B2C state. In a B2B, it's more me being a brand and have a lot of resellers, kind of which volumes do they buy, how much do they buy, what do they usually buy, so you can find a pattern in what they buy in order to service them in the best way. But that's the customer. Then you go for the product here, which is kind of the heart of this, like the hyper intelligent product is something that we sometimes refer to, but it can be the content around the product, if it's a product in a campaign, the facets, the USPs, the media describing the product, how it's used, which context does it work in, applies to, fits with, and whatnot. And then the context, the front end in itself, like in the store physically, it can be in store displays, it can be kind of a backdrop when you check out, it can be in the mobile app, giving your session the most relevant data, depending on the geographic location you're in, the weather you're in, like here in Skåne now, it's snowing, it's cold, so what does that do with me? I want to buy some warm clothes. I know kind of Intersport sees that, winter jackets, a lot of things that you want to push perhaps, but it can be weather, location, the different device you're browsing something on, price ranges and whatnot. Kind of the more you can capture of the context, the more, if you have real-time data and edge data accessible in an experienced state, the cooler things you can do in a front end. But these are customer plus product plus context equals a great experience. And that's what you want to expose to the front ends. So looking at this, like what do you want to do? You want to turn your enterprise data into experience data, and you don't want to have like costly time-consuming integrations. You want to have access in real time, kind of being able to manipulate the data given the session the user is browsing your data in or the product, different USPs, different images describing the product. So easily access of data, like release the data from the backend systems, but also have a circular data mindset. Like how can we reuse the cool data that's being maintained and created in this backend system and utilize it and make it into an experience data state as fast as possible, so you don't recreate the data, create all these different backend databases just to fuel front-end experiences. Reuse what you have and have the maintenance of the data as far back in the process as possible, but have as much reusability of the data in the front end as possible, like in any type of channel or any type or anywhere you want to meet the customers. So this is kind of a key thing. Turn your enterprise data into experience data and ask yourselves, what if, and check what kind of state your data is in and how easy is it. And also like you have to do it over and over. So not just one time expose the data, do it over and over. Also mix and match the customer experience data for a front end to be as relevant as possible. So you can kind of set it up. You can build unique segments. You can kind of tie all these different data together. We call that unifying the data, making sure they can use like the customer, the product, and the context data in a very easy way. And also think of what we call the Octo destinations, where we expose the experience data as easy as possible to have for one front end. Like there is not like one generic way. You have one purpose-built API for each of these different front ends. And you should never be held back by a system-specific data model in these backend enterprise states or enterprise data that you have. So like there's a different way when you put it in an experience state, making it easy to consume. Also, how easy it is to enable these digital teams as well. So this is not something that should be maintained or worked by the backend team, the IT team. This is something that you have to enable the digital teams themselves to slice and dice the data, expose the data, well-defined data with documentation, which make it easy for front-end agencies to build cool front ends or cool experiences with the data being exposed with them. But it should be the digital teams that are enabled in order to do this. Also kind of collect data and kind of have experience data being drawn in when this is being used in a session, fetch that data, fuel that back in the circle of data mindset so you can reuse the data and then kind of see what works, what doesn't work in an A/B approach of looking what data works, what doesn't work, refine the data as you go along. So that's something that you have to look at as well when you build your front-end experiences, not be happy that we just got it to the front end, kind of how can we refine it over time as well. Something that you have to look at. If we go kind of more into more traditional way of describing where is Octo in the system landscape or the tech stack. So we kind of label it like this. It's the system of engagement of your system. So if you look at this, you have your system of records here, enterprise data, as we discussed before, your ERPs, the PIMs, the DAMs, the CRMs, and some of these systems here that hold or create data as well in an editorial way, the CMS that has, as we discussed before, headless, a way of kind of exposing data. There are commerces, some of them are headless or claim to be headless, others are. And just to kind of say, headless as a term is more or less that the software itself is built to expose data. That's kind of what it's built for. And it refers more or less to the CMS world where you had like your content within the CMS and the editorial state, but you also had the layouts within that CMS. So headless was what kind of moving away the layouts and the look and feel of the data. So it doesn't really apply to other types of systems, but today headless is more or less a system that's primarily or solely kind of working with exposing data through APIs, and all the capabilities are in the APIs. And for us, Octo, we look at Octo as kind of a way to, as we started with, kind of unifying, exposing data, and look how can we release the data in an enterprise state into more of an experienced data state, but also look at it as vertically making data available for front ends to easily consume and have these thin front ends have the right data, which makes it a lot easier and faster to innovate and build more apps, because kind of I think all of us in this meeting can agree that we expect more as customers when accessing a brand or a retailer, and my experience is in different devices when I kind of enter into a more digital state. But this is kind of what we do. System of records, Octo system of engagement, unifying and exposing data. And then you have your front ends here. But if we have like the Octo Edge data available in real time, you can also do cool things when kind of looking at the context, and we can shift data points in real time dependent on the session we're kind of exposing. So me, Jimmy, I'm more interested in whatever thing when the weather is sunny, and when it's cold, it could be different things. And the products themselves can also describe themselves differently to me, giving my persona. So it can be different media, different USPs describing the products for me. So that's also pretty cool when you have real-time data or edge data that's available in real time and not move data around as much as usually. We can look at this also like there's more to the questions that I got here, like serverless was a question, which is more or less around the architecture, and Octo can scale indefinitely since our only like infrastructure is the code, so we can scale globally very easily. And that's more or less how you refer to serverless. There are no servers running Octo. We can be wherever, and that's kind of edge data. So we're real time in Shanghai as well as in Australia. So that's a pretty cool thing with being a global company. Also, composable is something people talk a lot about, but you can have like a composable approach in the way you architect your software, built up by microservices. So you can scale indefinitely based on that as well. But you can also have a composable approach like composable commerce. Everything is becoming services that we stitch together into digital experiences. That's also a way of looking at a composable approach. But looking at this more or less is we said before, unifying experience data and exposing those in APIs is something that we do. We can geoscale high performance APIs with Octo, but also connect data to the front ends very fast. You can have e-com services in your composable approach, being kind of more of a headless approach with a cart functionality. It can be order functionality. You can have any type of third-party SaaS services, cool retail services within stores, out of stores, all these different types of services that you can stitch together in your front end of choice. Bring your own front end. So it can be any type of front end here, and kind of Octo exposes the right data to these front ends when you guys tie this service together, but also unifying this, so this doesn't have to be bloated front end in doing this. And it's like the purpose-built API for the purpose-built apps. So it's like purpose-built APIs, and look at them as Slack channels. You can have as many as you want. So it's easily deployed by digital teams that can deploy these, making sure that the front-end team has the right data in order to build the right experience, which is a key thing here. Going forward here, some of the examples that some of the customers built, but it's more or less the approach that you want to have. And this is something that I've more adaptive, agile, fail fast, but you want to have that in, because when you guys build things, you know that it's your budget, you have to deliver, and you don't want to kind of be in this. If we started with that it became too expensive, IT projects, you know how they are, and like get in line and innovation dies. But you want to be able to fail fast and do MVPs, and it can't be too expensive to fail. So with this setup, you can expose the right data, the agency get access to that right away, so you can do more innovation. You can use front-end technology that's modern, that the front-end developer or front-end agencies want to work with. But you can also kind of, in this kind of FOMO of being in a state where you have kind of old legacy system, you have your monolith, you can also use this as a modern state to kind of bridge that gap in technology and exposing the data in a way that you can use modern front-end technologies in order to show your customers the innovation where it really matters, where they see you guys, and then you can have all these back-end transitions into new systems if needed, or if you can like expose the data where it matters the most in front of your customers. You can also onboard, collect, as we discussed before, kind of get more insights in the circular data mindset. Get insights from customers, refine your data, what works, what doesn't work, do that really fast. But easily here, front ends and kind of what Okta does is unifying the experience data or unifying the enterprise data into an experience state where it makes it a lot easier to consume for front ends. So we have a concept called Built with Okta, where we kind of showcase what customers and partners have built based on Okta technology, which is pretty cool, and we're super proud of it. And kind of being able, or what if, as we started with before, when you have your data in a state where it's easily consumable and it's in an experience data state, what can you do and what have others done, which makes it a lot easier for you guys to put in context. But some of the things there is from a customer of ours called Cartier, and they're based in Geneva, French brand, like high-end luxury watches, jewelry, stuff like that. So pretty cool things that they have here. But one example here that they did is an in-store app for enabling the boutique staff within the stores, and kind of they wanted to be super easy to use. You could use it under the counter. You can kind of look at it. You can immerse in a digital experience together with the customer before looking at the physical thing. So what they have there is user specific one and a store specific setup. So logging in there, you get your store with your stock, with your assortment, everything that you have in there. You can easily browse it, search by different types of facets within this, but the boutique stuff feels a lot more enabled, and it's super fast with the edge data with the Okta Experience API. So it's super fast in Australia as well as in Shanghai and Hong Kong. And it's like one solution that they can kind of work with themselves, and also personalized depending on the campaigns that are running in the different geolocations all over the world there. So they have their specific setup, which is relevant for their near area. Also, if you kind of are within a customer and you feel that you don't have the item within your store, you can see your cluster of stores nearby, so you can ship the item to the customers in the store, so you can always make a sale. But for Cartier, every sale is very valuable, as for everybody, but they have like high-end things. So like the caviar and champagne are flowing whilst the products are being addressed and shipped to the right boutique for the customer to make the purchase. Another thing that we did for them is kind of more of a, we call them digital experiencers or digital gateway, where customers or partners to Cartier don't have the e-com maturity that they would like them to have, and they want to showcase the Cartier assortment within their e-com, but not kind of have a purchase availability or to have the brand integrity of Cartier being maintained. But they have the possibility now to set up partner assortment and have a mini site or a site inside for the customers to use from Cartier. So more of a brand to retailer relationship, but they can kind of decide an assortment and deploy a mini site within their partner site as well. And by that, making sure that the Cartier brand experiences and the integrity of that is coherent to what they expect, but also kind of showcase market-specific, partner-specific assortments, gain traffic from the partner site, and kind of gain insights from that setup as well. But that's a concept called mini site, and it's used by other Octo customers as well. And the third one here is Set for You. So it's a bridal app is the work name, where you can kind of customize a wedding ring with the stone, the facets of the stone, the clarity of the stone, but also the mount and the material of the ring. And this was a Japanese initiative where they wanted to do something, but the headquarters thought that, yeah, you can't sell wedding rings like this, but the Japanese market said, yeah, but we think we can in Japan. So it was an innovation by the Japanese team, which turned out to be a really big success and now being rolled out globally. So it's a way of showing how, by having the data, a Japanese firm can build this front-end app easily based on the experience data, and they didn't have to invest as much. The Japanese team could do it themselves. Now it's being a global initiative. It's a pretty cool thing how innovation and the availability of data and turning enterprise data into experience data makes innovation happen. So this was kind of the clock is running here, and there's a lot of questions as well that we have to address later on. But I wanted to touch on this slide as well, just to summarize kind of the thing that we've discussed and based on some of the questions. But I think what you have to do is, like, as we started with, turn enterprise data into experience data, a holistic view of your data, and also kind of this kind of mindset of circular data, but like reuse data across channels and context, get more context data based back from the sessions where this is being used. As you have real-time APIs, you are in every session, you can get the data back. But also relevance and be respectful the way you approach your customers, like not the retargeting when you just bought something, you see everything in a different way of the same thing you already bought. You want to have kind of a more intelligence in the way you're being addressed by a brand or a retailer. So I think this is also something you have to do. And as usual, do all of this at speed. Like innovation, fail fast. It can't be too expensive to fail. And you shouldn't fail by purposely fail, but that's the best way to gain knowledge as well. And I think that was everything that I wanted to tell all of you guys this time.